Hi, welcome back to another coffee talk. Let's get the coffee going and then we can talk. You may be surprised, but what I want to talk about is AI, but from a slightly different perspective. So there's been a fair amount of talk lately about the cost of AI and specifically the cost of the tokens needed to drive all of these various wonderful AI use cases that we always hear about. The problem is people have been going a bit wild with those tokens and the companies that employ them are running into trouble. Famously, Uber blew through their entire budget for 2026, their entire token budget for the year in 4 months, I believe it was. There was a mystery company, unnamed, that apparently blew through $500 million with a B dollars because they hadn't set any caps on their particular LLM. And there, more stories like this all the time about companies reconsidering their dashboards. Previously, they were tracking how many tokens employees used. And as always happens, every measure becomes a target, and people were trying to outdo each other in the usage of tokens to prove that they were the most forward-thinking employees, the most productive employees, the most AI native employees, and not always thinking about the most efficient way to use tokens to accomplish a task. So now there's suddenly a renewed focus on, okay, how do we control costs? And the pendulum is swinging back very much in the opposite direction from where it was, and setting caps on monthly usage and having to have exceptions to go above the cap. And I think this misses the point just as much as the previous situation did. So in the previous situation, people were burning AI tokens willy-nilly without thinking of the return on the investment in tokens and therefore ultimately in hard currency that the company was making. And now companies are setting limits on the token usage without thinking on the returns on what people were supposed to be doing with those tokens that they're now not doing. Now, the thing is, this is not a unique situation to AI. Back when I was a Cub pre-sales person, and one of my first really big enterprise engagements was with a large telco, since defunct or absorbed disappeared into a larger telco. So, statute of limitations has expired and all that. But we were trying to work out what would be a good business case for them to buy our software. Or, not. As a colleague of mine always says, a quick no is his second favorite answer, because at least, you can get out and move on to the next thing. So obviously the answer you want is yes, but if you're not going to get a yes, you'd rather get to no as quickly as possible and get out of there. But we were pretty sure that there was a yes there to be had. We'd identified this particular use case, which was the activation of SIM cards. So obviously if you're a mobile telco, activating SIM cards is kind of a crucial step in the onboarding of new customers. If you can't activate SIM cards quickly, then you have a problem. And the back-end systems that were designed to activate the new SIM cards were occasionally having hiccups and dropping the process. What we realized going around from office to office of this telco was that nobody really had oversight of the whole process. Everybody had a view of their own little bit of the process, and they understood the consequences to their small fiefdom of an outage. So if my system goes down, it has consequences thus and such. If we could stay up longer, the benefits would be the converse of that. But all of this was only adding up to, we can shave off a few percentage points here, a few percentage points there, and that doesn't pay for much enterprise software. We needed a bigger win. And the turning point was when my salesperson that I was paired with suddenly had a brainwave. We were driving away from the office after another desultory round of interviews, and he suddenly pulls off the road and screeches to a halt on the side of a busy Roman road So you can imagine the scene. And we run into the corner shop and just start talking to the owner of the corner shop, where the SIM cards were actually being activated. This is a point of presence. And what we understood was that the impact was far greater than anyone inside the company had any inkling of. What was happening was that because it took more than a few minutes to activate the SIM card, the guy often didn't activate them with the customer in the shop. He would activate them later when he had a quiet moment, or would batch them all up at the end of the day, or perhaps even at the end of the week. So this meant two things. One, massive spike in utilization, because lots of people around Rome and across Italy were doing the same thing. And if the outage occurred, the outage was not, the number of SIM cards spread across all of the day, you lose a few minutes, okay, you only lose that minute's worth of SIM cards. Potentially you're losing all of the SIM cards for the day, or perhaps even for the week. And telcos live and die by ARPU, average revenue per user. And if you're not getting that, and worse, you're losing that customer to a competitor, not good. So we redid our sums with this assumption in mind, and we finally had a framework that we're able to put together all of the inside people's small view of the problem into our new understanding of the larger problem. And then we had the business case that we took to CIO and we got the deal, great success. But the point is, nobody inside the company had this perspective. Nobody. They all were only looking at their own little thing. And this is unfortunately fairly typical. The more mature organizations, absolutely, they will have this idea. But the default standard, which I've come to see in 20 plus years in enterprise sales, is that people don't have that idea. So when we talk about ROI, return on investment, whether it's in the context of AI tokens or any other potential investment, sure, you need to have a cap on the I, or you need to keep control of the I, of the investment of your costs. But that number doesn't tell you anything in isolation. It only has meaning in reference to the R, to the return. If you're spending $1 bazillion, but you're expecting to get $2 bazillion, then it makes absolute sense that you should spend $1 bazillion. You should not even question that. But most people, they're spending some amount of money and they probably have a fairly good handle on that. They have spreadsheets and bills and whatnot, but a much fuzzier idea of the R, the return. And that's the problem that we're facing here. So when we talk about cost control in AI, two things. One, this is not a new problem or a new discipline that requires a new solution. But the other is we need to look at both sides, the R and the I. Anyway, that took a little bit longer than usual, so my coffee is already brewed. Maybe I should have drunk it first so that I would talk faster. But anyway, I hope you found this useful story, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Cheers.